Hello everyone, welcome back once again. In this video, we will look at how we can generate code-first models from an existing MS SQL database inside the C# project using Visual Studio 2019. But before we get started, please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't. So let's get to it then. So to continue, these are the things that are required. Obviously, you should have the latest version of Microsoft Visual Studio and then the SQL Server. You have to also make sure that you install the .NET workload using the Visual Studio installer. So once you've got all these sets, then we open the Visual Studio, right? So as you can see, I've actually got the Visual Studio 2019 opened. And then I've got the start window, so I'm just gonna close it. Yeah, so if you look at it here, I've got the Server Explorer open as well. So if you don't have it open, you can click on the view and you should find the Server Explorer here, right? So once we've actually got that bit, yeah, then we can right click on the data connections, right? Select and right click the data connections and then add a connection. So here, obviously, you can select your data source. In my case, I'm selecting the SQL client, right? And then you have to enter your server name. In my case, it's a /SQL Express, and then the log details. Yeah, in my case, also is a Windows authentication, right? And then here, you can enter the database that you want to use. If you don't have it, you can enter a new one and create it, right? In my case, I'm just gonna create a new one. So I'm just gonna add YTT11. So if we click OK, yeah. You see, so the database does not exist. So if we click on yes, then we should get a new one created for us. So we click on yes. And then we've got a new database created, yeah? So here we've actually got nothing inside the table. So we're just gonna add one table quickly, right? So add a new table. So here, the table, we're just gonna change the table name, right? We're just gonna call it product, yeah? So here, we're just gonna add some few details here. So the ID, we're just gonna make it product ID. And then name for product name. So the data type, we're just gonna make it test. And then we're just gonna put price. And the data type, we're just gonna make it money, right? So as we can see, it's not very difficult. So we're just gonna add one more attribute, description. So the description, we're gonna make it test as well, yeah? So as you can see here, we've got very simple stuff here. So this is how we actually update the database, right? We click on this update. So now we can click update database here. So as you can see, update completed successfully. So if we come here, refresh the table. So as you can see, we've got a new table inside product with all the attributes, yeah? So this is what we can also do. So we right click on the table product, right? And then show table data, right? So here, as you can see, we've got nothing inside. So we can just add data to the table. So we just we're just gonna add some few data. So I'm just gonna pause it while I do so. Yeah, so as you can see here, I've actually added a couple of data to the table. So we can just refresh it, yeah? And everything should be fine, yeah? So the next stage Yeah, the next stage, this is what we're actually going to do. So I'm just going to close this bit here. So as you can see here, I've got an empty solution with nothing inside. So I'm just gonna click on the start window and then create a new project. So here, I'm just gonna type in console lab. So the console lab, this time here, we're actually going to use the .NET framework, not the .NET Core. Yeah, because the .NET Core, I'll make a separate video on that, right? So we click on the .NET framework and then next. So here you can configure the project details. So we're not gonna look to that. So we're just gonna wait for the project to create. So as you can see now, we've actually got our console app created now. So what we do is right click on the project and then add new item. So here we click on the data and then ADO.NET entity data model, right? So here we're just gonna call this one entity. Call this entity. And then here, this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to generate the code first from database, yeah? So here you can also generate it from an entity framework designer model or from an empty code first model, right? So this is what we're gonna do. So we're going to generate the code first model from the database, right? So now we click on the next. So from here, we can actually select our database. So if you may recall, the connection string and whatnot, yeah. So now we can actually browse the the databases and select the one we actually created, right? So YT111, yeah. So we can test the connection. The connection is successful. So we can click on OK. So now, as you can see here, we've actually got it selected here. So we can click on the next. So here we can select whatever attributes of that database that we want to import. In this case, we're just going to import the DBO just for the database tables, right? So once we actually select that, then we click on the finish. So it should take a while then. So I'm just gonna pause it. So as you can see here now, we've actually got the entity framework DB context and everything generated for us automatically, right? So if we look here, as you can see, we've also got product.cs created. This is actually in line with the product table that we actually created. Yeah, so if we look at it, so we've got all the necessary properties inside the table. So if we look at the type name is test, the money, if we look at it when we actually created the database, all the stuff that we actually added. Yeah, so as you can see here now, it's not difficult. So we've got the entity class, so we can actually grab the data that we actually added inside the database by doing entity. Okay, but we're going to use the using entity DB context is equal to new entity, right? So now we could say DB dot products dot to list dot for each. So we can just loop through the products. P for each product. Console the right line. So we could just say okay, so I'm just gonna make it simple. I'm just gonna remove the whole thing here and actually use the for each loop. Yeah, so for each variable, product in db dot product, then we can write console dot write line. So now we can actually print out. So the product name, this will be p.name. Then the price will be something like product.price. So we actually convert this to string as well. So put a small letter C. I'm just gonna leave it just like that, just the price, right? And then console dot read line. So right now we're just gonna run it to see what actually comes out of it. So as you can see here now, we've actually got the data from the database table printed out here now. So I'm just going to leave it here for you to explore it further, so you can just look at it and just try and build it on yourself. So once again, yeah, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do, because I've got lots of videos coming up, and I hope this actually video helps you. And peace.